This is MyBlend Stories, and I'm Jeff Gerlach. Ann Smart is an instructional coach with Adrian Public Schools, the same district she attended as a student. After completing her bachelor's degree at Adrian College in 2002, she developed her craft as a high school reading teacher and literacy coach in Colorado for a year and the state of Washington for 6. In 2010, she returned to Adrian to teach reading at the middle school before transitioning into her current role as instructional coach. She's in the midst of her 3rd year in this position. We discussed her favorite aspects of being an instructional coach, her work with teachers in implementing inquiry-based learning strategies, and the district's exploration of learning environment design as part of their Model Classroom initiative. This is her story. Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Staying warm up there?
Trying to. My phone says it's 1 degree now, so at least in the positives.
Yeah, it's a heat wave.
What's it like down there?
Cold.
Yeah.
We're the only district in the county to go today, which is okay.
That's actually one question I was going to ask you, is if you had school today.
We're here. It's fine. I mean, I'd rather be here than in June, so last year was way too long, so...
That's an interesting thing. I was thinking about that. So last year, I left my classroom to take this position in January.
Okay.
And, last winter was more... Well, maybe now with all these cold days. There was more snow days last year, right?
Yeah.
But kind of the same situation. And I had this conversation with several people about how just throwing days onto the end of the school year... It's not an equal transaction, right?
No, it's not. Nope, it's not. We went back and forth too, do you add hours, do you add days? And in the end, it's like, either way, you've lost that instructional time in those days. And being a high school person, our teachers freak out this time of year because the ACT and all that's coming up. So they would much rather be here than not. So it's good. We're good, though.
Right. Those are non-negotiables, too. And that's especially what I was thinking about is, you push your own personal exam schedule back, but you've got those ACTs and all those dates that are non-negotiable that you've got to have them ready before that point.
Yep. And then, teachers take it personally, even though they can't, but they shouldn't, but they do, and kids don't do well. So it's stressful for them, but this year they're holding there. They're just happy on the delays. They're like delays are fine. So we can do what we need to do and get it done. So
yeah,
good.
Well, thanks so much for joining with me and
having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's fun.
I don't have to show you my face today because I have really bad hat hair. So
I was going to message back that I have horrible hair every day and never wear hats. So. I guess I understand, but then I don't understand.
Right.
I just have to deal with that.
Yeah, I get it. My husband doesn't have any hair, so,
Well, I guess, I shouldn't be complaining. Or maybe I should be complaining that I have to deal with hair.
That's funny.
So let's start off with this. What's your favorite part or favorite parts as your role as an instructional coach?
Okay. Well, being an instructional coach, obviously, my day is... I do many different things in one day. I can go from a meeting with a teacher on, helping them with a lesson in their classroom to jumping over to a classroom to help kids put projects on websites to jumping into a meeting about ACT planning or M-STEP planning. And then I could walk down the hall and be pulled into my MYP coordinator's office, and we're talking MYP and how we're going to get inquiry-based learning going. And then the next minute, I'm in a classroom helping kindergartners, with iPads. So, my day is different every day. I have, my calendar open, and days that I look, I go, wow, I don't have anything planned today. But it doesn't mean I don't have anything planned. It just means that I don't have anything structurally planned that day. So I like, the fact that I'm doing many different things during the day. And obviously, I love teaching. And being in the classroom is something that I miss at times. I think, man, I wish I could have my own classroom, or I miss that connection with kids. But in the same sense, I'm making, trying to make connections with teachers, and I'm helping them in their classrooms. And I guess that's what, makes me enjoy this job the most, is when I can help them problem solve and watch a teacher grow, especially a newer teacher that, comes in with, they struggle with management, they struggle with planning and things like that. And just to kind of watch them grow over the next few years, under a wing of myself and their mentor, they're able to grow, and it's fun to watch that. And, we kind of have stuff on video even with these teachers, watching them grow. And so it's exciting in that sense, is helping in that way. So, and I should mention I work at the same school district that I went to and I grew up in.
That's awesome.
So many of the teachers that I had as a student are actually still here in the district. And so that's been an interesting part to play also, is coming in as an instructional coach. I was away, taught in the state of Washington for 6 years out there as a literacy coach out there. But coming here, they kind of got hired back as this Ann Smart, not Ann Betzold. And people started to realize, who I was and that I was their former student. And so it was kind of, to make that transition for some teachers was, I think, a little difficult, that here's your former student coming in and watching you teach and giving you feedback. So it was hard for me too.
Right.
that I didn't really think about when I took the position. So
generally a positive thing with some of your former teachers, though?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Always positive. We've kind of termed our motto is the instructional coaches they're the opportunity. We're not an expectation. So we don't, I don't evaluate teachers. I don't go running and tattling what's going on in the classroom to an administrator. The administrator is the one that has to put out those expectations, and the coaches are just the opportunity for the teachers to make those improvements or to go along with the district initiatives and get help with that. So, we kind of sometimes have to remind ourselves of that when things get a little tough or a little sketchy with teachers, when things are getting tight. We just have to kind of remind ourselves that we're just an opportunity. So,
no, I think that that's important to establish that and practice that. So, would you say that collaborating with teachers is the best part about that then?
Yes, we do it at many different levels. The coaches are kind of partly in charge of planning our professional development for the year on all those days. And so we're heavily planning those throughout the year and then delivering that professional development on many cases. And then we have extended learning times after school where the teachers get together either before or after school and work for about an hour and a half. And so the coaches, we all attend those. Sometimes we lead them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're just there to sit and work with groups, And then we do it on a one-to-one basis where a teacher, just recently I worked with a teacher on the principal letter. We got a sub for her for the day, and her and I just sat down and worked for the entire day doing some lesson planning. And she's new to using iPads and technology. And so I helped with looking at her unit that was coming up and planning some things that she could do using the iPads. And so the principals, are very supportive of when the teacher asks for help, they're able to go into one of us and say, hey, could you come here on this day and help this teacher? So it's just many different aspects in the ways that we help the teachers on a daily basis. So
now, are you working with teachers in specific content areas, or is it kind of just a general?
I am technically 5th through 12th grade, English and social studies. Kelly Del Santos, who I call my work wife, who's actually on maternity leave right now. She's a little baby. She is the math and science for 5th through 12th. And then we have 2 more instructional coaches at the elementary level that focused on math the first few years, and now we're transitioning over into ELA. So some big changes in those areas. And so they've had a heavy math focus these past few years. So there's 4 of us in the district total.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned the use of inquiry in lesson plan design.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I'm terribly interested in blended environments. I've been working with some teachers where they take this task mindset. Well, we're going to have them complete this, and this, and this, and this, and really try to overly structure things.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about the use of inquiry to kind of add flexibility through just the fact that you're asking a question or questions, right? I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your work with that particularly.
Yeah. So our district is an IB district. Right now we have one school that is a PYP school, pre-years program. We have middle years program, MYP, and then we have the DP, which is the diploma program for 11th and 12th graders. So we are in approximately our fifth year of implementing all of this. And one of the biggest transitions we're trying to make is going to more of the inquiry-based, project-based learning. And then our high school, on top of that, is we have one-to-one with the iPads. So a lot of, right now we're really trying to, because okay, let me go back.
No problem.
Just make a little more sense. Oh gosh, how many years? This is my fifth year here. So about 4 years ago, we were given a school improvement grant. We were on a transition plan, basically. We were on the naughty list, let's put it that way, in the state of Michigan at our high school. And so we were given $3 million to make the transition. We had to hire a transition specialist, and then at the time we hired a coach for every subject area. We went through intensive training for instruction. We hired a company out of California, Action Learning Systems, who came in and taught us direct interactive instruction model. And from there, over the few years, having $3 million obviously helps to make transitions because you can get as many subs as you need to get the training you need, and you can do the things you need to do to make your school better. So since then, now we're down to, like I said, the two coaches in the high school, our 5th through 12th grade, 2 in the elementary. And part of the last push of that grant was to buy the iPads because kind of when the state comes in and they give you all the things you're doing right and all the things you're doing still need to improve on, and technology is one of them. So we went through and purchased the iPads and redid the infrastructure in order to support them with the last few million.
Yes.
And so I have to say that technology was really literally thrown at the teachers. I mean, some of them didn't want anything to do with it. Some really embraced it. And so MYP at the same time was being put in the district. And so we had a lot of things going on at one time. I mean, teachers were stressed. They were overwhelmed. Everybody was stressed and overwhelmed. We had a lot going on. And MYP kind of took a back seat for a little while because we didn't have to get authorized right away. So some buildings, like our 7-8 building, were able to kind of slowly work at MYP, and they were kind of our first followers. The high school past 2 years have been a really big push for to get the MYP. Our authorization is actually in April. And so right now, one of our big things we notice is that, MYP IB is obviously very inquiry-based type in learning. And how do we teach teachers that have been teaching for 20 some years or even less to be inquiry-based teachers? Because they're used to, and it's not their fault, they're used to the tables, rows, they're used to being the ones that delivered the information. Where now, especially with the iPads, our kids, they have the information at their fingertips. And for a teacher, that's hard to understand when you've always been the one to deliver the information, that now these kids, what you're telling them or what you're lecturing to them, they can read on the iPad, they can look it up quickly on Google, so how do we change our teaching and learning so that our kids are more of the researchers, the thinkers, the developers, the creators of what they're learning, rather than us telling them what they need to learn. Does that make sense, I guess?
Oh, it makes total sense.
So we have a few teachers, that really did take the iPads and embrace them right away and have been doing more of a blended learning, but within the classroom. And so they're using, the technology for MYPS, and it's a good practice anyways to have anchor questions for your units. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of some of the time spent in those classes is researching and thinking about those anchor questions and them finding the answers. They're not always factual questions, they're conceptual. And so the kids have to go out and find that information to be able to answer those questions. So like I said, we have some teachers that have really embraced it and are, doing more of a blended learning model, and some that are still very traditional and working towards becoming more inquiry-based. So kind of all over the board.
It's interesting how there's a lot of districts that adopt the technology and then kind of figure out, what are we going to do next with this, right? And it just doesn't work, right?
Right.
But
go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Well, I was just saying, I think, for us, what has made it a positive thing about it is that we have a strong instructional base.
Yeah.
First, we set that first.
And that's what it
And
sounds like. That's what,
right. So even if, we still have teachers, and it's like that in every district, we have one-to-one, but we still have teachers that don't necessarily use the iPads, as they could be used. But we know that at least their instruction is stronger and better, and it's more student-centered and more, engagement activities that are going on. And so, now it's just an instructional coach. My job is to go in and help them realize that this activity, we could do this way using this, let's think about how we could do this using some technology, or how could we collaborate using, the Chromebooks or the iPads, and looking at what they're kind of already doing and putting that technology twist into it, for them to see. So,
yeah. And I think that's extremely important, because when you've laid a really good foundation, and if you're talking about if you're able to identify anchor questions, and you're able to think in this way that you want to put kids into a space where they're kind of blazing their own trail, so to speak, and really struggling with a lot of the content discovery that traditionally teachers mine it, regurgitate it, and spit it back out, right? It's a tremendous starting point, because you can have the conversations about like, well, you don't have to have technology-specific conversations to start. You can say, well, what do we want to do for this particular question? Well, we want to encourage some collaboration. Well, this tool could do this for you for this particular kind of collaboration. Well, let's talk a little bit more about exactly the kind of interactions we want to have students have in a technology-neutral kind of way. And then we can see what we're going to put face-to-face, what we're going to put online, what you feel comfortable with, and so on. So I think that's just such a great place to have that kind of conversation.
Yes. Yep. And we kind of started all this, too. We try to make it so it was, more productivity. So how can these iPads help you in the classroom with productivity, and that's where, we started. I think when we last year at McCall, I think when we first met, I was telling you about the virtual locker, the app that we were having created for us. And then, I have some teachers that have jumped into, Google Classroom and other things like that have helped them just simply with productivity. And to them right now, that is, that is what's working for them right now. And, it leads to the next thing. And so as they see, how their kids engage with it also, I was talking with a teacher recently about badges, and she's got some very unmotivated 10th graders that, should be 11th or 12th graders, and they're not bad kids. They're not behavior problems. They're just very unmotivated. And, how could we use badges? Could we? I don't even know, but is that something that we can use, because it's part of your classroom management? So how these kids, they like video games and nothing else is working. So let's try this, so, it was something we looked at and we've been talking about, so it's just what's going on in your classroom, and technology is great because you can, make it very personal to each person. I don't know how you think, but like some people, some school districts, they mandate you use this, this, and this. And that's kind of how we were at first. And, our technology director, Maria Colin, was very good about, kind of saying, but, if you told me to use certain things, I might not want to use them because it's not how I work or what I use, So she's been very good about keeping things open and letting teachers kind of use what they feel comfortable with, other than mandating certain things. So.
Yeah, there's two sides to that, right? And it's kind of like you give it the Goldilocks test about what do we want to adopt universally, because we know that universal adoption will really benefit us. Like, do we want to universally adopt an LMS so that there's not 4 or 5 LMSs that are being supported by our tech department, right? Do we want to give teachers license to use their own under the understanding that it's not going to be supported? But at the same time, teachers have to have some autonomy over certain aspects, because they see a practicality in it. And if you try to regulate stuff too much, you get disengagement from the stuff that you're pushing, right? Right. So I think that's always going to be a tug and pull. You got to find what's just right for that particular situation, right? We probably have talked about it a little bit already, but I'll explicitly ask you, what are you working on right now that really excites you?
Well, there's a couple of things. Like I said, the inquiry-based teaching and learning has really kind of sparked my interest. I mean, it's always been something I've been interested in, kind of always how I taught when I was teaching in the classroom. But, I've really started digging and learning, and especially working, with our MYP coordinator. I'm excited to make that transition. I'm excited to see the teachers that are jumping on board and really starting to try it in their classroom. It's hard because even the new teachers, they weren't taught like that in college, in secondary schools, you don't necessarily learn how to teach inquiry-based or project-based, at least when I was in school. And most of our new teachers, when they were there, that's not something they were trained in. So, you start out one way, and then to make that change and to let that release go. I had a really good experience. It's a really long story, but I'll make it short. I had a really good experience. I ran a little tech club after school at my daughter's elementary school. And I do it as a parent because the kids, I know teachers don't have time in their day to do lots of things and extra things. And so I kind of took it upon myself to start this little tech club. I have about 15 kids that come to me after school. They're second through fourth graders. We do it just once a week, and I have them only for an hour, but I wanted them to make bristle bots last week. So they're a PYP school. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this inquiry based, and I'm going to give them the materials. I'm going to show them an example. I'm going to have them build it.
Yeah.
And, so I'm like, this is going to be awesome. So we started going, and it was amazing to me to watch second, third, and fourth graders absolutely come to a standstill when they couldn't get it to work the first time, because they got it together. They got their little motors going, and then they went to put it on, the bristle, and it wasn't working. Like they watched in a little video clip I showed them, and they automatically just wanted to give up, right? They were just like, oh, I don't like this. This isn't working. Can we do something else? Blah, blah. And I'm like, no, right? I'm like, what do good scientists do? And being a PYP school, the teachers over there are great about making sure the kids understand that, the design process and how that works. You have to evaluate and go back and recreate, so we talked about, what does a good scientist do? Do they just give up when something doesn't work? And, then you could see them put their head down and go, no, they go back to the drawing board, so, but here I am in the middle of this, and it's crazy. It's loud. It's messy. There's stuff everywhere. I got kids screaming for scissors and screaming for tape, and, I got kids cutting things, and I'm like, oh God, somebody's going to lose a finger. Right. And I felt at that moment, I was like, I've lost complete control of this. But in the end, when I stepped back and reflected on what happened during that hour, I realized I had one kid over at the trash can cutting the bristles because he thought, well, maybe if I cut the bristles, it'll make it work better. I had one kid thinking, well, if I add another motor or another battery, if I add more tape here, it'll do this. And then in the end, we had only two that were successful. I had about three that it just spun, and that they were happy with that, But to watch them go through that process, then the next day I turn around and I go to a staff meeting or extended learning time, right? 6:30 in the morning. We walk in, and the teachers are looking at the GRASP model, which is how to put together a project-based learning for your students, or a performance task for your students. And one teacher says, well, what if it doesn't work? And I was like, oh, I had that experience last night for this conversation, I was like, and, so I told him about my experience and how, it didn't work. I had two kids that got it to work, and the rest all, they didn't fail, but it didn't work. And so, but is that wrong? They followed the directions. They did what I told them to do. And the teachers were looking at an example of building a lunar lander. And, the teacher asked, what if the lunar lander doesn't work? And that's where we had that discussion. What if it doesn't work? Are you going to not give them a good grade just because it didn't work, even though they did everything they were supposed to do? They hit everything on the rubric. They asked the right questions. It just didn't work. So that, for the teachers to start realizing that not everything is going to go perfectly in your classroom during the inquiry-based lesson, that's a big step, that they're going to lose control. It's going to be messy. It's going to be crazy. And so that's what makes me excited, because I want to see that process. I want to see these teachers start doing this and realizing that it's okay to let go. And it's okay that if it's loud in your room, it's okay if it's messy in your room, as long as there's learning and the kids are excited, that's awesome. So, that's then a long answer. That's what I'm excited about right now. But
I love how you I love how you painted the picture of that for me though, because I have some things that I'm thinking about. Like one the students that did succeed, because obviously you've got a bunch of kids that are just exhibiting tenacity left and right to try to solve this problem.
Yeah.
They're engaged because it's a problem that's worth their time, right?
Right.
They've been able to wonder enough and kind of they're clearly focused on what they want to accomplish, yet there's a lot to be decided. There's a lot of mistakes to be made before you figure out exactly how you're going to get there. Like the trial and error, yes, but also just the decision-making process that you go into to thoughtfully find resources and put them together and kind of just think outside the box with that. I'm wondering with the students that got done and actually got it to work.
Yep.
It's because like they needed less time than the rest, right? Like I imagine if you could spend a little bit more time,
yeah.
and especially if you could turn them back, the ones that finished, and kind of turn them into leaders and have them help the rest.
Right. The interesting thing is one of the kids in my tech club, he had actually he'd made one before with his dad. And
Gotcha.
So he was, oh yeah, I know how to do this. This is no problem. And it didn't work at first. And he was very frustrated because he knew he had made it work before. But the two that got him to work that day, they didn't get him to work until, I was like kicking them out the door. Like, we have to go. Your parents are here waiting for you.
Yeah.
It took and then I actually had one student, I caught him like basically hoarding my extra materials. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, well, can I just borrow an extra battery? And I'm like, yeah, you can borrow all 4 of them. Can you at least leave me one? And then he's like, well, can I take a motor too? I was like, yeah, just, I just see you have 5. If you can leave me one, that'd be great, And he's like, how about some tape? Can I take some tape home? I was like, take the roll, dude. And I need some extra toothbrushes, so he took the supplies home. And he came back this Tuesday and had it. He made it, and he's like, I am not feeling well today, but I wanted to stay here just so I could show you that I got it, And he was like, he stuck through the whole day not feeling good because he just wanted to come to tech club to show me that he got it to work, and how, for me that was so, like, I was so happy. I was just like, that's so cool that he took the time all week, to get it to work, and I have, on our little tech blog that I tweet out sometimes, I have videos of them, going through that process. And, the teachers at the school, were impressed to see it too. That I had kids in tears that were upset, but they weren't tears of like, I can't do this. They were tears of like, they're frustrated and they were going to make this work, and so it was exciting. And, just to know that that's kind of what's coming down the pipe for our school district, have more kids doing things like that is exciting. So, and I'm, glad I get to be a part of that. Along the lines of that, we're trying to pass this bond right now in Adrian Publics, and the vote is actually next Tuesday. And part of that is for more technology throughout the whole district. And then we're hoping that we have some model classrooms right now that are filled with collaborative furniture. So lots of stuff on wheels and stuff that, spins and all that, and cool, wobbly stools and tables on, wheels that move around, and high top tables, and we got televisions and all that in the classrooms. It's interesting, with the inquiry based, how to have that furniture, if you're not an inquiry based or teacher that, does a lot of collaborating with your students, that furniture doesn't make much sense, and, it's hard for a kid to say why they like the furniture, how it makes things different, because they just see it as, this cool spinny chair, but, but, to see that a student in no time during their time in class, if they're in one of those, if they're on a spinny chair, we call it spinning chairs, a chair that swivels or anything, they don't even realize it, but at no time are they not looking at the teacher. Are they not engaged with where the teacher is, what the teacher's doing? They're being able to ask each other more questions, being around those tables and having the furniture to be able to scooch over real quick and make a group or talk to somebody. And there again, those teachers are taking a risk because it is louder. It's, it's crazier. It's, we got kindergartners falling off stools, but for them to start to realize how that just, they've already were good instructors. They had good instruction. They were engaging teachers, but just how that has changed the way the dynamics in their classroom, the vibe in their classroom, how the kids interact with one another is really, it's exciting. That's exciting also. And I hope, if our bond passes, that's more to come of that in the district to have in the future. So
really interested in the power of furniture to kind of shape thought patterns.
Right.
I wonder how much of having physical spaces that are different and just having like a collection of stuff, like how much we find out just by trial and error. Right. Like a round table versus square table, different size tables, different kinds of chairs, separating apparatuses that have differing levels of isolation versus openness. I'm wondering how much we discover by accident and how much we intentionally can cultivate and design these spaces. Kind of a thought. It's
interesting because, obviously there's, we're trying to pass a bond, and we were just lucky enough to get this furniture on loan free for 6 months. So this isn't furniture that we necessarily picked out. It was just given to us. So, to go through this process and realize, what is really appropriate for what age level has been interesting. You would think that certain things that they've put at these levels, would make sense. But, and that's why we're going through this process, because, we go to purchase this stuff. We want to know what's, what works and what doesn't, how much is too much in a classroom, or, you're kind of saying you don't really, know what's the kids, our high school kids. So we have one in the junior. We have a junior classroom that has them right now. She's a junior English teacher, and she has the model classroom. And the kids there are so excited about this. It's like an experiment for them. I mean, they are and there's people constantly in the room asking them, what do you like? What don't you like? And it's hard to get away from that. It's not really about the furniture. It is really about your instruction and how our instruction can change and is better because we have more collaborative furniture. But from, the outside view, it's the furniture because that looks different than everything else. And for the kids, it's only that one place during the day that they have that furniture. So for them, in a way, it really is about the furniture. Yeah. For them to say, like, these are kids that were not prompted or anything to say, I used to tap my pencil a lot in class, and because I can, like, kind of wiggle in this chair, I notice I don't do that as much. Or for them one of the high school students was the one to say, like, at all times, I can see my teacher. Like, I can turn around and anywhere she is, I can see her. I don't have to move this big wonky desk, to turn around to watch what she's doing. For kids to say, yeah, I like these high top tables because I can stand up all hour. I don't have to sit down. Or, we like these desks because they can roll together real quick and make a table of 4. So they're the ones they're taking the stuff. They carpeted her room, and no other rooms in the high school are carpeted. And so the kids are taking the furniture out in the hallway because they want to see how it works on non-carpeted floors. So yeah. They're the ones that are really taken this. We have one in the middle school, which is a 7th and 8th grade English class, and they're middle schoolers. So, they have middle school brains right now. And, it's interesting to watch. They have the same exact furniture, but the difference of, how the maturity level of that goes. And, they have these stools that kind of rock back and forth. And the teacher quickly realized, those aren't going to work in middle school. They're too rocky. They got kids falling off of them. But you watch her, you go into her classroom, and she was always a teacher that did a lot of collaborating. But it's just different now. Like, the kids are constantly talking with one another about what they're doing. They have Chromebooks. We have carts of Chromebooks there. So the other day they were they were doing a PSQ, which is, always praise, question, and I forgot what that is. Praise, question, and suggest. And they were doing that on their Chromebooks. They were showing each other their presentations, and they were doing a gallery walk and doing a PSQ. She was able to move the furniture around for that. They, this week, were supposed to Skype with a ex-gang member because they're doing the Outsiders unit. So they're going to use their big screen TV and have a bunch of classes come in and do that, and they can push the tables out of the way and make a big space, for that. And then our kindergartners are just stinking cute. But they can't really verbalize, but what, in their own little ways they'll verbalize. But I went in yesterday and just videoed. I didn't ask them questions. I didn't do anything. And to sit back today and watch those videos, it's amazing the things that they really are, how much, they're cooperating together, how much their fine and gross motor skills they're using to move the furniture and to put it in places. When the teacher says, okay, go, she doesn't tell them where to go, but they know, like, it's reading time. So they grab a stool and they'll grab a comfy, one of the big puffy, they call it the poofies because they're like these big poofy stools. She doesn't tell them where to go or what to do. They automatically do it. She brings it back together. They do a writing mini lesson, and then she goes, okay, go, here's what you're going to do, go. And they all seem to go to the tables. But then you still have a few that are on the stool or this or that. And then, so it's just interesting to watch them, how they use the furniture without being told.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's important. I mean, the flexibility of a inquiry-based, problem-based lesson needs to match the ability to flexibly just decide what's going to be the best configuration for you to be working in groups, working by yourself, and different kinds of just preferences that as a learner, you can't necessarily always communicate why you need it. You just do, right?
Yep.
So rather than like predict what students need, problem-based learning is a differentiation strategy by letting the learner decide a lot of what goes into it. Right. The same thing for our physical spaces, like multi-purpose furniture that's on – is there a lot of furniture on casters and stuff like that too?
Yes.
Yeah, so like being able to shift around and move stuff. It's really important that the physical environment match the flexibility of the learning environment, right?
Yep, and that's the thing. I mean, some of our teachers are ready for that, and some of them aren't quite yet, which is not their fault. It's just, I mean, education is making some big changes right now in the way we do things, and a lot of innovation going on out there. And for some people, they'll take right to it, and others, it's going to take a little bit of time, to realize the importance of it. A good example is we have our new B100 space also, which is our new collaborative space, and it's more for professional development, staff meetings, and board meetings, things like that. But teachers are allowed to check it out with their students. But we've always, for PDs, we've always gone and set up the room, like we would want it. They're gonna be in groups, so put some tables here, put a table there. Well, in this new room, it's kind of interesting. I went in, just started rearranging furniture for the meeting, and my vice principal comes in, Mike Perez, and he says, "What are you doing?" I was like, well, I'm getting ready for the meeting. He's like, no, put it back the way it was. I want them to figure out how they need to sit for the meeting. And I was like, you're right. Like, here I am. Okay, this is what they need. This is what they want. Here's what, But so we had them come in, and it was the first time they'd all been in the space. These are staff members, right, teachers. They all came in. They were, it's all steel case furniture. It's fancy. But there's not a lot of like chair seating. There's a lot of high tops. There's a lot of bench seating, comfy armchair seating, things like that with side tables. So we just left it. It was like in one big board meeting type arrangement. And they came in, they all sat down. And then we said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Go ahead and get yourselves into groups of 7 and go. And they just kind of were like, okay, and so then all of a sudden they realized they had to move this furniture to make it work for them, and so just that one day, I think, was a big eye opener for some of them that a space like this, very non-traditional, worked for them, and it worked to have that collaborative space, and it was fun, and exciting for them. So it's good.
It makes me think, going back to the teachers, like difficulty to shift. Do you think teachers feel a sense of like a loss of control with these kind of ideas?
Yeah. I think especially like with technology, obviously, if you plan this great lesson and it doesn't, that day your Wi-Fi doesn't work or something's just not working, it's disappointing, and it's frustrating. And especially for somebody who that's stepping out of the box for them, and I feel bad when that happens because, they've spent all this time and I'm sure lost sleep over it, because they want it to go right and then it doesn't work. And how disappointing, is that? And, I was talking about this with Kelly a few weeks ago, and it was something I had studied in one of the classes I'm in for at U of M right now. But back, when technology first started coming through education, and just even when we started first using technology, in everyday function, stuff didn't, if you clicked the wrong button, you were down, you were done, like it went away, it was gone, And so, a lot of teachers I work with, that's how technology has been used with them. Like when we first got computers, you clicked the wrong button, it shut down, or you lost the program, or it didn't save, where there's we've got to start making them understand, helping them understand that it's really hard to screw things up nowadays on technology. I mean, if something's not working for me, I just start pressing buttons, and it's really hard. You can't, especially we're Google school. So you're using your Drive and you're using Google, you're not going to lose anything, and it's stuff like that they just need to get more comfortable with, and understand that technology isn't going to break, as easy as it did before. But it's the same with the furniture, and it's the same with the inquiry-based. It's just small steps, letting them see how it works first. We do a lot of videotaping in classrooms, Kelly and I, and we try to get a lot of stuff on video and share that with the teacher so that they can see what their peers are doing and what other teachers are doing. And it's not like a woo, look what they're doing, but it's like we're trying to work on this month's student engagement. So here's some videos of things that we just happened to see in the classroom that were great examples of student engagement. And they're just quick little 1 minute, 30-second clips, but it just sparks ideas, helps them see that it can be done, and that, gives them ideas, I guess, and then a place for them to come to ask us to how to kind of take the next steps, So that's been a big piece for us this year too, is making sure we get video and pictures of everything.
Document everything so you have an archive.
My iCloud every at least 2 weeks is like, it's full, storage is full. I'm like,
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, that's really breaking down the silos in your district.
Yeah, and it's, some teachers are still adamant, and I always ask, can I videotape? And some are still like, no. No one, there's most of them, pictures and things like that. But, they're getting better at, not that they're getting better, they're getting more open-minded to having that happen in their classrooms and seeing the value in it, I guess, And it's a little, chip on the shoulder too when, somebody comes in and wants to, gets a great video of your class and then wants to share it, how cool is that,
Yeah.
You're getting a shout out, so.
Yeah, sometimes we bury our heads so much that we don't realize that what we're doing is extremely awesome and warrants sharing. I think back to my own experience, and I was doing stuff in isolation that I look back in my role now where I'm trying to help a ton of teachers, and realize how impactful it can be to have the person next door to you share a little bit about their ideas on what to do for certain lessons. And I think what you talked about with value is so extremely important. Seeing value in something can be the difference between someone trying something and someone saying that that's not for me, right? If you can't see yourself in it, if you can't see something improving the way that you do something, even if it is a better practice, you've got to be able to see the value of putting in the effort to learn and do something differently, right?
Right.
And so, you're a value saleswoman in that sense.
Yeah. Well, and I always laugh because my mom, she was and still is a school teacher. She retired after, 30 some ungodly years of teaching, and then has been at the college level now for about, she's almost 20 years. So she obviously has always been a big inspiration to me because she was a great teacher and made great connections with students and staff. And, one thing when I was going through teacher ed, and actually when I was going through my teacher ed program, I was actually doing some work with her, and I was getting paid to do some work with her in the classroom as a sub. Something she said to me once was, these kids change every year. She goes, and because I said something about, man, you've been teaching this unit for how many years? She's teaching an outsiders unit or something. She goes, yeah, but it's different every year because my kids change every year, so I have to make sure I change it. These kids aren't the same kids every year. And, to me, that was always stuck. Even as when I was in the classroom, my hours change, so who I have come in that door. And so to keep that mindset. And so I think I try, as an instructional coach, that's one of the things I try to help teachers understand is that, these kids are different. And, especially some of the teachers that have been around for, we call them, one of my principals calls them the KG veterans, but the veteran teachers, to realize that, like I said earlier, these kids have the information at their fingertips. They no longer want you or need you to tell them every tidbit of information. You need to learn, we need to learn as teachers how to, ask those prompting questions, those anchor questions, those, driving questions to get the kids to learn it themselves because they have the information in front of them, to be inquirers. And when I have a question, where do I go to find that answer? And that's a different style of teaching. That's just, from what they're used to. I mean, so it's just, yeah.
I think that that's a better place than any to leave off with today. I mean, kind of sums up our entire conversation in a couple of sentences. Maybe we could have saved some time and just let off with that.
I'm long-winded. Sorry.
No, you're not. Believe me. If this was the other way around and you were interviewing me, we would go the same length. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk with me, and I really am excited about this conversation. And I know that when we meet up at McCall, we can talk even more.
Come to our session. We're doing we're going to call it the McCall-Aid session, I think now. We want to change it, but basically what happens, it's more based for administrators, superintendents, coaches, and it's like, all right, your teachers have just come back and drank the McCall Kool-Aid. What do you do?
Yeah.
Right? Because now I got these ideas, so how do you kind of rope it in and make it work? So
I will. I'll try to come by and see you then.
Yeah, we'll be there. But, cool.
Well, okay, well, stay warm.
Yes, we will. We'll see what tomorrow holds, right?
We'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to MyBlend Stories. For more, visit myblend.org.